Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are plunging into, well, one of the most consequential environmental battles unfolding in India right now.
It really is.
We're talking about the future of the ancient Aravali Range, and it's all following a landmark Supreme Court ruling from back in November 2025.
And this isn't just some small regional skirmish. This is a massive conflict where the fate of a whole geological barrier, a range older than the Himalayas, mind you, is hanging in the balance.
And it's all because of a single number.
Exactly, a single number.
That's the crux of it. The real fight isn't about whether the Aravalis deserve protection. It's about something that sounds almost, I don't know, bureaucratic.
That sounds like a technicality.
It does. It's about what constitutes an Aravali hill in the eyes of the law. And this attempt to create one uniform definition has just sparked enormous fallout.
And we really need to frame the stakes here for you, because if this definition is wrong, the consequences are, well, they're immediate and they're severe for millions of people.
We're talking about water security.
We're talking about the collapse of a critical water recharge system, the acceleration of the Thar Desert, and a serious degradation of air quality in some of the world's most populous cities.
So this is an ecological survival decision. That's what disguised as a regulatory update.
That's the perfect way to put it.
Okay, so our mission today is to unpack the specifics of this new definition, understand the logic behind it, and then zero in on exactly why environmentalists are so alarmed. So let's start with the rule itself, the legal shift here. It comes from a proposal from the Union Environment Ministry, right? And the Supreme Court accepted it.
That's right. And the goal, at least on the surface, was to end decades of what you could call administrative paralysis.
Paralysis because the definitions were all over the place.
Exactly. You had overlapping, sometimes contradictory definitions across 4 separate states. It made enforcement, especially against illegal mining, almost impossible.
So before this, how was it decided what was protected?
It was often subjective, based on old vocal records, historical usage, things that are very hard to prove in court. The government argued that if you don't have a clear, objective boundary on a map,
Then the land just gets stripped away while people argue.
precisely, officials are stuck arguing over jurisdiction while the damage is being done.
So the solution proposed was this completely standardized technical definition. Tell us about the specifics of this 100-meter rule.
Okay, so the new metric is very precise. To be legally classified as an Aravali hill, a landform has to have an elevation of 100 meters or more. But, and this is the critical part, this measurement isn't from sea level. It's measured from the local relief.
Local relief. Okay, that sounds like a textbook term. How do we explain that for everyone listening?
Right, so think of local relief as just the immediate surrounding ground level. It's the elevation difference between the highest point of the hill and the lowest point right around its base.
So if a hill is rising out of a flat plain, you measure from the plain, not from the coast 500 miles away.
Exactly, which makes that 100-meter bar quite high for an ancient eroded range like the Aravalis.
And there was another part to the definition too, wasn't there, about the range?
Yes. For a group of hills to be a protected range, these qualifying hills, the ones over 100 meters, have to be clustered within 500 meters of each other.
So height and proximity, that's the new objective standard.
That's the standard that was presented to the court.
So what was the core argument then? Why did the ministry believe this strict definition would actually work where the vaguer protections had failed?
The argument was all about enforcement efficiency.
Yeah.
They told the court that with this clear metric, you can finally move past the is it or isn't it protected debates that just paralyze local officials.
It makes everything simpler.
Much simpler. You can use remote sensing, GPS. Police and forest departments can act decisively without a legal gray area. The goal was to stop illegal activity, specifically in those clearly defined tall hills.
Which on paper sounds like solid administrative planning. You take a messy problem, you reduce it to a single verifiable number, but this is where it all takes a very sharp turn. If the goal was clarity, why are critics calling this objective definition a massive threat to the entire ecosystem?
Because that administrative definition, by focusing only on height, it just fundamentally ignores the ecological reality of the Aravalis.
Especially near the big cities like the Delhi-NCR.
Exactly. This isn't the Himalayas. You don't have these young, towering peaks. The Aravalis are among the oldest ranges on Earth. They've been worn down, weathered over geological time.
And what does that weathering mean for their height today?
It means the vast majority of the ecosystem, the part that's still doing the critical work, it just doesn't hit that 100-meter threshold.
The vast majority.
Yes. Activists and ecologists have provided data showing that nearly 90% of the entire Aravali system is made up of these low-lying ridges, scrub hills, and small hillocks. They might only be 50 or 60 meters high.
90%. So if 90% of the landform falls below the new legal line, what happens to it? Is it just open season?
That's the fear. And it is a fear rooted in law. Those excluded areas might not automatically qualify for protection under the Forest Conservation Act anymore.
Which is the key piece of legislation, the strongest safeguard.
It is. So if the land isn't legally an Aravali hill, the regulatory hurdles for mining or construction, they either disappear or they're substantially reduced.
It sounds like a giant regulatory loophole created by trying to be too objective.
That's a good way of putting it.
What are the practical real-world consequences then in those high-pressure areas?
Well, you're looking at two massive threats. First is mining and quarrying. These smaller hillocks are, full of stone and minerals, and they're just easier to clear than the big peaks.
So they could be flattened for profit.
Very quickly. But the second threat, and maybe the more alarming one in a state like Haryana, is the immense pressure from real estate.
And you're talking specifically about areas like Gurugram and Faridabad in the Delhi capital region.
Yes, exactly. That land is incredibly valuable. If low-lying Aravali land gets reclassified as just regular land instead of a protected hill area, you could see vast swaths cleared for construction almost overnight.
So the core critique is that the law prioritized measuring height over preserving function.
That is the absolute core of it, the focus on height versus function.
Okay, so if we connect that to the bigger picture, it explains why environmentalists are fighting this so hard. It's not about a pretty view.
Not at all. It's about preserving a vital piece of continental infrastructure.
What is the main function that these smaller hills perform that the tall ones can't do alone?
It's what scientists call an ecological chain reaction. You have to think of the Aravalis as a kind of living wall, or maybe a fence, even where the fence posts are low.
A fence against what?
Against the eastward creep of the Thar Desert. That is its most critical, its most existential function.
But how do these low ridges, which don't look like much, how do they stop an entire desert?
It's a cumulative effect. It's about vegetation. It's about wind dynamics. This dense network of low hills, it acts to slow down, to capture, and to eventually halt the wind-blown desert sands. They anchor the soil.
So if you remove that low-lying network,
you breach the fence. And once that sand starts moving freely, the whole process of accelerated desertification begins. It threatens the fertile land of Haryana and even beyond.
that really raises the stakes. If we lose this barrier, what do the scientific warnings say about the consequences for a city like Delhi?
The warnings are stark. They predict a dramatic increase in both the intensity and the frequency of dust storms hitting Delhi.
And these wouldn't be just any dust storms.
No, they'd carry much finer particles of sand and soil, severely degrading air quality that's already, famously poor. It would make these major metropolitan areas far less habitable.
But there's another critical function that gets overlooked, isn't there? It's not just about rocks and sand, it's about water.
It's absolutely about water security.
We know how essential groundwater is across North India. How do these low-lying sections specifically help with that?
The Aravalis are like massive natural sponges for the entire region. When the monsoon comes, these hills, even the little ones, they capture the rainfall, they slow the runoff.
And let the water soak into the ground.
Exactly. It percolates down through the porous rock and recharges the vast underground aquifers. They are the essential funnels.
And if you flatten that land or cover it with concrete,
You get two disasters for the price of one. Flash floods during the monsoon because the water has nowhere to go. And then the collapse of groundwater levels for the rest of the year.
that's the long-term cost, isn't it? The short-term clarity of the 100-meter line seems to come at the expense of the long-term air and water security for the whole region.
It does. It raises that very important question. What is the true cost of administrative simplicity?
Which takes us right into the legal and political fallout. So the court issues this ruling in November 2025. Given the huge risks we've just talked about, what did the Supreme Court do immediately to, stop the floodgates from opening?
They did recognize that potential for a land grab. So the court put in place a really crucial safeguard, an interim moratorium
A moratorium on what?
on all new applications for mining leases.
Oh.
And it also prevents the renewal of existing leases across all 4 states. It was like hitting the emergency brake.
So it stopped any new exploitation while a better plan is developed. The system's on pause, but not totally shut down.
Right. It's on hold.
And what's the path forward the court ordered for the long term?
The court ordered the creation of a management plan for sustainable mining, or MPSM.
And who's preparing that?
It's being prepared by the Indian Council of Forestry Research and Education, which is a key national research body. The idea is to develop guidelines for mining that can be done sustainably, but only within the areas that are now defined as protected.
And what about the existing legal mines that were already running?
They were allowed to continue. The court's ruling said that as long as they adhere to some new, strict environmental safeguards, they can keep operating. It's a transition, not a complete halt, to avoid major economic disruption.
Okay, now let's get to the political reality. A ruling that defines the protected area so clearly, you'd think it would help governance. But the result is that huge areas of land, maybe 90%, lose their protection. How did political leaders react to what some are calling a gift to the mining sector?
The opposition was immediate, and it was intense, especially in Rajasthan and Haryana.
The two states that rely on the Aravalis the most.
The most. State leaders publicly and harshly criticized the ruling. They've argued that by setting this clear boundary at 100 meters, the Supreme Court has essentially just rolled out a red carpet for the mining lobby.
A red carpet to descend on all those low-lying hills that now don't have clear protection?
That's their argument.
There was a particularly strong quote in the source material on this.
Yes, the condemnation was very clear. The former Rajasthan Chief Minister, Ashok Gehlot, was quoted calling the ruling a death sentence for his state's natural shield.
A death sentence? That's incredibly strong language.
It is, and it shows that these state governments see the protection of the entire range, regardless of height, as fundamental to their state's future. They see the entire ecological function being undermined by a legal technicality.
And what about the public, the environmental movement? What have they done?
They mobilized instantly. The SaveAravali campaign gained a lot of public traction, especially around the Delhi area, organizing protests and educational campaigns.
And legally.
Legally, and this is crucial, they have filed numerous petitions asking the Supreme Court to review its decision.
And what is their core argument in those review petitions?
Their argument challenges the very foundation of the ruling. They're saying that a mountain's ecological value is not a function of its arbitrary height, whether it's 50 meters or 150 meters.
It's a factor of its function.
Exactly. Its function within the broader ecosystem. Its role in stopping the desert, in recharging the groundwater. They're asking the court to please adopt an ecological standard, not just a topographical one.
That tension just keeps coming up, doesn't it? The conflict between legal simplicity and ecological complexity, it defines this whole situation.
It really does.
So after going through all this, what does this legal battle over 100 meters really mean for us?
I think what's so fascinating here is seeing how a battle over a single, seemingly objective number is determining the future of an entire geological barrier, a barrier that's critical to the survival of millions.
The law was looking for ease of administration.
It was. But in doing so, it potentially dismissed the complex, interdependent functions of all those low-lying hills. We've, in effect, defined away 90% of a crucial life support system.
The implications of that are monumental. We're watching a struggle where a clear administrative line clashes with the messy, functional reality of nature. I mean, consider the possibility that the very act of trying to reduce nature to a simple, map-verifiable number for the sake of governance may be the greatest threat to its complex, life-sustaining function. It leaves us wondering, how often does the pursuit of legal clarity blind regulators to the full spectrum of ecological reality? Something for you to mull over until our next deep dive.